Hello, and welcome to Story Time at the Suttons. I have a question. Have you ever been thirsty? Hopefully someone shared a nice big glass of water. This book is called And the Trees Began to Move. Written by Lisa Gammon Olsen, illustrated by Lauren Rutledge, and published by Eifrig Publishing. Let's see what happened in a time of need. And the trees began to move. Deep within the forest, the spirits of all nature once dwelled in peace and harmony. The cool, deep pool at the center of the woods was the heart and soul of the forest, or so the spirit of the pond thought. The crystal clear water of the pool shimmered in the sunlight. The branches of the gnarled willow and stately oak trees hung out over the water and dappled the pool with wonderful leafy shadows that moved gently with the breeze. Small silver fishes and glistening green frogs gathered in the shadowed coolness near the water's edge. I am so beautiful, the pond spirit told himself. The sun sparkles so brightly off my surface. It surely must dazzle all who look upon me. The spirit of the pond loved the way the trees, bushes, and wildflowers reflected their colorful brilliance in his surface. He marveled how he could be no color at all, yet appear to be all colors at once, always changing his reflection to mirror his surroundings. Perfection reigned until drought came, and the rain ceased to fall. The spirit of the pond settled down in the Perfection reigned until a drought came and the rain ceased to fall. The spirit of the pond settled down deep in the cool depths to await the storms, which were sure to come. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and still no rain fell on the magical forest. The spirits of all the living forest creatures became anxious. I am growing weak, the grandfather of all oaks moaned. My leaves are dropping from the lack of rain. He shuddered and his drooping branches rasped and hissed sharply. My bark is becoming thin and brittle as in the heat, the great willow said, solemnly shaking his massive head of leaves. He shifted his roots in the hard, dry earth. We all need to get closer to the water. He inched his massive trunk closer to the cool banks of the pool. The pine trees whispered together in agreement. With much creaking and cracking, they strained to pull their roots free from the solid ground. Branches swayed and quivered and leaves rained down in a dry shower of green as the ancient trees closed in on the pool. "Ah," said the mountain ash as he wriggled his roots deep into the soft, muddy bank. "That feels wonderful." "We should have thought of that weeks ago," a honey locust agreed, extending a tendril of root into the healing water of the pond. "I believe I'll have a nice long drink of cool, refreshing water." Grandfather Oak nodded in agreement, and sighs of contentment circled the pond as the great trees quenched their thirst. They drank and drank and drank. The spirit of the pond awoke from his slumber. Something was different. Something was not right. The surface of the pond didn't twinkle and sparkle above him. The cascading rush of the waterfall was a mere whisper in his ears. What had happened while he slept? He swirled to the surface in a panicky froth of bubbles and foam. What catastrophe has befallen us? He cried aloud. Look! The water level has fallen. Boulders and logs which were submerged only yesterday are now dry as old bones. He ranted and raved as he circled the pond. You trees! He shrieked. You trees are stealing my precious water and blocking the sunlight with your branches. My sparkle is gone. You are too close. The pond lies in the shadow, and my beautiful colors are dark and stained. You have no right to steal what is mine. We surely meant no harm, Grandfather Oak apologized. But we will all perish without water, and you have so much. I care not what happens to you, the pond spirit replied angrily. I don't help myself to your treasures, do I? Your fruit and seeds are yours to give as you choose, are they not? I will do as I please with what belongs to me. We choose to allow those with need to help themselves, the great willow argued. The birds and squirrels needn't ask for what they need. We are all one, in spirit, and we will share what we have. And I will keep what is mine, the pond spirit said coldly. Now go. The trees shook their shaggy heads sadly, but pulled their roots from the moist earth near the pond. The ground trembled and shook as they slowly backed away. Ah, that's better, the pond spirit whispered to himself, as the trees receded and the sun could once again sparkle and dance across his surface. Another month passed without rain before the spirit of the pond began to worry. With no trees close to provide shade from the scorching sun, the temperature of the water began to rise. Warmth-loving algae grew profusely and stained the water with a distinctive emerald tint. The glistening green frogs and small silver fish that loved to dart in and out of the shadows near the edge of the pond didn't tolerate the changing conditions. The smell of decay was thick. I have been very foolish, the spirit of the pond cried. In trying to save myself, I have indeed lost all that I hold dear. I have turned my back on all the very ones who have sustained me all these years. The brackish water boiled and churned in his anguish. Grandfather Oak, he called, mighty willow, forgive my foolish ignorance. I have been vain and very selfish. Bring your brothers and sisters back to the pond, and I will gladly share my treasures with you. I will nourish and restore you. In exchange, will restore myself. For without each other, we are nothing. Silence greeted his plea. He heaved a mighty sigh and prepared to sink down into the murky depths to await his self-inflicted doom. The water rippled softly once And then again. The spirit heard a muffled crack, crack. The earth vibrated ever so faintly at first. Then the sounds grew ever louder, ever closer. His heart soared. Grandfather Oak had heard. Snap, thud, crack, crack. The clearing around the pool exploded with a sound as the trees began to return. After coming together, the forest regained its magic. Once again, all things lived in peace and harmony. In the circle of life, we are all dependent on the actions and kindness of others. Together, we thrive. The end. The pool of water thought it was just about him and thought he didn't need anyone else. But in truth, when we are together as one, that is when we are the strongest. Thank you for joining us at Storytime at the Suttons.